Your question, what role did Activate play in preparing your hearts for what God was about to do?
Yeah, I can start with that. So, for those who do or do not know, what?
Mike.
Can you guys hear me in the back?
I think we're fine.
Yeah. For those who don't know, a large part of our story the past 2 years is my wife, Ray. A year after we got married, she started getting sick and sicker until last January, she stopped being able to really take in food. She was getting around 500 calories a day. And then in April that year, we introduced a wheelchair, which was over a year ago. And in March this year, she was in the hospital because of the extreme malnutrition, trying to get a feeding tube because she'd lost a significant amount of weight and was on the path to die. And
doctor said
we had to leave our home. We had to throw away a lot of our stuff. God led me to quit my job last August. So I started Activate in January with no job in a very temporary home and a wife that I literally had to carry up and down the stairs in order to go anywhere. And what God did with Activate, the biggest things was just He replaced so many lies. I don't know. He replaced so many lies with truth, and sometimes identifying a lie itself is good enough, but He replaced it with the truth. He identified that I believed that I was worthless and that I was incompetent, and these are all things that I adapted and adopted as I grew up. He removed a significant amount of fear when it comes to provision, where we're going to stay, the work that we're going to do, and challenged me, do I really believe the word? And also a part of this was learning how to hear God. One of the things that I tell people, this is going to connect directly to Ray's story, is when I started Activate, I'm not a journaler. I never was. So when I first show up, I heard about Activate a week before it started.
Read adult books.
So I started, and John's like, all right, we're gonna journal for 30 minutes, and I'm like, so they're like, Ray, whatever's on your mind. I'm like, okay. So I literally journaled the first half of the page was just, I hate this is the worst, like I hate journaling. And then it transitioned to just God showing me how He speaks. And about a month ago, God asked me on Sunday to take Ray and I up to a trip to upstate New York. Again, 2 months after my wife was in the hospital, to upstate New York. And I was like, is that really you, God? But, it was. And then, is that where you asked the next question? Or should we just go into the...
Just go ahead.
Do you want to take it from here? Well, we got to upstate New York, and then I felt like God said, you have no idea the good I'm going to do. And it was a writing trip. I felt like God was telling me it's a writing trip, which is, I think, what He told me to convince me to go up. So I was like, this is going to be a really great writing trip. And He's like, you have no idea the good I'm going to do in this trip. I was like, it's going to be an awesome writing trip. And on Thursday, I literally, they had this wagon there for your luggage to go across the muddy path to the RV. And I literally put her in a wagon her across. And then,
it almost fell over.
Yeah, twice. And
It was stressful.
And I literally carried.
Because I can't walk. And it was really muddy.
I literally carried her into the trailer. And the short version of it is Thursday she's in a wheelchair and Sunday she's hiking. Every day.
Another fun thing is God was like, go to New York. And when you're not, when you're financially really tight, and then also just tight in every sense of the word. And God is like, go spend almost a week in an Airbnb up in upstate New York. So that's gas, that's food, that's, Airbnb costs. And you're like, okay. And God's like, I'm going to pick the Airbnb. So Josh is like, okay. And he's scrolling through Airbnb, and God's like, that one. And God said, I'm going to pick it because it's something that you wouldn't necessarily pick, that you wouldn't point out. So the one that he felt like God really was like, that one. because I have mold sensitivity, didn't look like it was mold free. It was not exactly new looking. It wasn't a mess, but it just is old and kind of, I don't know, didn't look special. And also in the description, it was like 420 friendly and pet friendly. And our hosts
that one, God?
was a godsend of a situation that felt like a bullseye only God could hit in terms of like mold free and, you know, clean and accessible and all that. That was, we can't risk bringing back any contaminants and allergens to her. So Josh was like, doesn't look mold free, 420 friendly, and pet friendly. Does it smell? They were like, oh, we take cleanliness very seriously, and a lot of people do. You didn't necessarily know what that means. Yeah. So we had to drive 8 hours just to find out if I could tolerate the place or even if it was clean. And so that was another little instance of God being like, you know, very specific with Josh. And it had taken all that time to kind of get Josh comfortable with those specifics. There's a whole lot that we're gleaning over in terms of all the stuff God did. But then we got there, and it's almost like from when we got there, every few hours, I just was able to do things that I was not able to do before, like clean my own dish or you know, use a walker in the thing, and then go on a walk with Josh, like holding his hand, and then by Sunday just going on a hike. And
4 hours.
It was
up and down.
It's like 4.5 hours.
God told me, like, don't say or do anything that will stop her from challenging herself. So I'm like, okay, but I can do this, right? I'm right next to her so she doesn't topple.
There was a steep section that, you know, I didn't look at him purposefully, and he's like, but as we were hiking, I told Josh, I was like, you know, I walked the 400-foot trail from the trailer to the car. I, you know, walked the trail down the steep area to the river, hiked around on the boulders, you know, around the river. And then on our way back, I was telling Josh, I was like, my brain obviously says, like, you've done a lot of good work today. You should probably start feeling tired, right? But I was like, well, I'm actually feeling less tired the longer I go. And so then we got to our car and drove to another spot and hiked more. Another really sweet thing about New York was weeks before, Josh and I were hanging out really late in Percival. God told Josh, go get a burger. Josh was like, are you sure? So we went.
That's money, God. I don't think you know what you're talking about.
So we went and, you know, we were hanging out, and as we're talking, Josh is like, if you got better tomorrow, it's chit-chat, you know, if you got better tomorrow, what's the first thing that you would want to do? And I was like, going on a hike in the woods. And so then in New York, that was the first thing I got to do on my legs. And God was also so kind, because right before God had told Josh, like, go to New York, I was processing with Josh that I was really anxious and kind of dreading the process of, I think we both felt in our spirits God moving, and other people had kind of started sensing it, but I was going to start gaining ground again. I was going to start getting better in certain areas, and I was really anxious and dreading the process of getting better around all the people that love me, because ultimately I'm under a microscope, and I just leave me alone, let me do it myself, or like let me just kind of do things without having to think about this being the first time I've ever done, you know, something. So it was just really frustrating. And Josh prayed and was like, well, God, what do you want Ray to know? What do you want Ray to do right now?
This is before New York.
Yes, this was Friday, and God told Josh to go to New York on Sunday. And I heard God go, walk. I was like, no. Josh was like, did you hear anything? I'm like, I don't like it. I don't want to say it. Ultimately, you know, so I got up and walked. It was really hobbly. It was not really great, but ultimately that was like God ripping off the Band-Aid to be able to do that around Josh. Because I was even nervous around him to like get up out of the chair. When you're in a wheelchair for over a year, it's kind of like a big deal to do anything on your legs, and it's really uncomfortable that somebody would be like, oh, oh my gosh. I'd be like, don't look at me. I'm just doing things. So it was really helpful that was like a ripping off of the Band-Aid. I, walked with Josh helping me, and then I sat down, and God was like, again. And then again. So, 3 times it was just, my legs didn't get better, but it was just a building of comfort. And so it was so kind, not only that I got to walk in the woods for the first, as the first thing I got to do, but God gave me a place of privacy. He took me away to New York, to the woods, to, out in the middle of nowhere, in a little trailer RV with my husband where I didn't have to think about anything that I was doing, any progression. I was just being. And that in and of itself was almost healing, just not having to think about that.
And within a week of the hike, she was cartwheeling with my niece, and we've done rock climbing 5 or 6 times in the Sterling Sport Rock. And there's still a lot left to do, but we are extremely grateful for what God's done.
Yeah,
And now, what do you think your next steps are? What is God calling you to do?
God hasn't let us out of the woods. I prayed a while back when I saw how great it was to be close to God. I was like, I hear so many stories of people getting into nice situation, it's a hard time, and then it's a good season, then they fall away from God a little bit. And I was like, I don't want that, God. Let my life be constantly reliant on you. He's taking me up on it. So the next steps, God is asking me to not care not to focus on our financial situation. He has asked us to kind of pursue a glamping lifestyle for a little bit, to be able to bless people in the area.
We're living in a tent.
Yeah. to bless some of the people that we're going to be around. And he's asked me, now this is no one knows this yet, so you all get kind of a secret, to partner with the Morrison family, if anyone knows them, to make a feature film this summer, which is a full-length movie. I do video production for that whole thing. So we're going to be making a movie this summer, which is a pretty big undertaking that God's just like, can you trust me? That's his own thing. He had me write the script in a night. It's a whole cool thing. But so those are our next steps, is trusting God with. What about the tent? Oh my gosh. Yeah, I was like, God, I don't want to live in a tent. And he's like, a tent was good. He was like, a tent was good enough for me. So I'm like, okay. All right.
You said that's a big tent.
Yeah, you had servants, God.
You had multiple rooms.
Yeah. I think that's about. Those are the immediate next steps.
I have no idea what's next for me. I live in life.
Just cartwheels, right?
I feel like I'm probably gonna enter into a season of just fun. I have no idea. And that probably some of that also comes from other people being like, Ray, when you can eat again, we can do whatever you want, or we can do whatever you want, whether it's go anywhere, I don't know. So whether that's just people or God, I feel like there's a little bit of everybody, both God and people, just being like, you need fun. So yeah.
And from a worldly advice, I will give you milk it. Milk it. You've got a lot of time to just use this.
No, a funny story. I know we're out of time, but I was in when I did grocery stores. When we do grocery stores, I used to push the cart and carry her behind me and just hold on her hand. And it was
cute.
people would look and be like, "This guy needs a little bit of help." So they would get out of the way. The next day, when she's better, she's walking by me. I'm like, these people are so rude. I've almost hit 6 people. I'm like, what's going on? Ray, can you believe? Oh, they have no idea. Yeah, cool.
Wow. Thank you.